This is the final part of the process, exporting out your song or exporting out stems of your song. I've done some basic mastering on the song. I'm not going to go into too deep on what I've done. You can watch some other series on Groove 3 on how to master your songs. But basically, on the song, I've done some slight EQ adjustments. I've cut out the low cut that you don't hear. There's been a slight boost at 140 hertz. There's another dip at about 250 hertz of about minus 1.2 dB, and then a high shelf increase of about 3 decibels at 10,000 hertz. Then I've added a multi-band compressor to help even out the dynamics on the piece. So this is just going to make for a more smooth performance across the different frequency bands. Then I've added Ozone's Imager tool to increase the stereo width just so the sound sounds like it's a bit wider. And then finally, I've added a brick wall limiter to increase the overall level of the mix with a ceiling of minus 0.3 dB and then a gain increase of about 8 dB. So this will help match up with other commercial releases out there. And like I said in an earlier video, I tend to drop the levels of the tracks instead of boosting them just to help retain headroom. And then now in the mastering process, I can use a limiter to increase the level because I still have that headroom available. Now, generally with this style, there's two types of track exports that producers will want if you're sending it to, for example, a trailer house, a film or TV studio, or even a video game developer or video gaming studio. First, you can either do a straight stereo track export. So with this, I would set up my left and right locators for where the song's going to play through. Then I'll go to my bounce or export mixdown options, and then choose to bounce out the track. This will come up with a dialog box that shows me what type of format I can use to save my song out to. For this, I'm just going to use my straight PCM audio uncompressed file format at 16 bits resolution with a sample rate of 44.1 kHz, and then there's also some dithering applied. So this will do a straight stereo track export out for me. Now, another popular method is to use the export out to stems option. And when I mean stems, I mean different sections like the strings, woodwinds, brass, and then the percussion all have their own audio track. So basically, you're providing an audio for each section of the song to a producer or director to give them some more flexibility with your music when they're working with it. If they want to, for example, drop out some of the instruments, except for maybe the percussion, then they have the flexibility to do that because they have the stems to work with. So let's see how this is done. On my track, I've broken down the different audio sections to strings, brass, winds, and percussion. Then the miscellaneous section has the other types of tracks, like the piano, the pulsing engine, and the choirs. So now what you need to do is route these tracks or bus folder tracks correctly to a specific bus output. Let's see how this is done. I'll bring up my mixing panel, and let's first start off with the strings. I want these to go out to a unique bus channel. So let's choose something like bus 20. And you can see that that creates a bus channel for me here, but I don't want an auxiliary track. So I can just go back to my project and I want to insert an audio stereo track. And on this track, I can choose the input of the same output of the strings. And just make sure that this is a stereo track. And I'll call this O1 strings audio. And I'm just going to move this to the bottom. And let's do the same for the other sections. So I'm going to need one for the brass, winds, percussion, and miscellaneous. So that's another 4 tracks. And let's just name these accordingly. O2 will be the brass. O3 will be the winds. O4 will be the percussion. And then O5 will be the miscellaneous tracks. Now, the reason I'm naming these first is when I record these to an audio track, it will take this name and add it to the track. And this just means it'll be easier to find when I go to my audio files folder to search for these audio stem tracks. So this was going to bus 20. Now this one, let's make it stereo and set it to bus 21. And doing the same for the other tracks. Make it stereo, choose bus 22. Percussion will be stereo and bus 23. And miscellaneous will be stereo and bus 24. Then next, in the mixer, I just need to set up these outputs. So the brass will be going to output 21. The winds will be going to output 22, or bus 22, sorry. The percussion will go to bus 23. And finally, the miscellaneous tracks will go to bus 24. So first you need to record on the tracks, and then now record through a pass of this. I'm sure you've heard this track about 100 times now, but here's one more time. So there you have it. I can solo these tracks, and this is the audio stems for the song. And you can also see how it has picked up the correct name for the audio file. And also, if I go to the audio file folder for this track, in my audio files folder, there are my tracks that I can use as uncompressed audio waveforms as stems that I can send through to an audio director or film producer or trailer producer, just giving them that flexibility to work with these tracks. And you might find that they use alternative versions of your track through the media, or it might be mixed differently depending on what media it's going out as. Maybe the brass needs to come down if it's going to TV, who knows? But it's good to get into the practice of making audio stems in this industry. That's it, guys. I hope that you've learned a lot on how to create your own unique epic cinematic compositions. It's really a fun genre where you can really go all out with your productions. So take what you've learned and start composing your own epic cinematic songs. Thanks for taking the time and watching this entire series. And I encourage you to also go through and watch some other Groove 3 series, especially some on music production, mixing, and orchestration to take your epic productions even further.